Welcome, welcome. How's everybody doing? Hope everyone had an awesome Thanksgiving. I had a great Thanksgiving, and then this afternoon my daughter came running up the stairs with a little loaf-shaped box in her hands from Florida, and it was a fruitcake from my buddy Reiko. Thank you, my dear. I'm so excited to have fruitcake for dessert. Every year she makes fruitcake. It's so nice. So I'm going to start officially now, okay? Hi, I'm Kalika. I'm a motion designer and character animator based in the New York City area. I teach at universities such as New York University, Pratt Institute. I've taught at CUNY Hostos, Borough of Manhattan Community College. I teach software, I teach animation, I teach design, video editing, all kinds of fun stuff. And I share my knowledge on Monday nights at 6 p.m. Eastern time, most Mondays. Yeah, so I have a really cool little animation to teach you guys, and there are a bunch of files that you can download in order to make it, and I'm just going to show you what it is we're going to make right here. This is all going to be done in After Effects, so make sure that you have your After Effects open and download the files. The link to the files is in the description. And this was all inspired by this really cool Candid ad that was seen in the Union Square subway station in New York City by my buddy Anthony. And so Anthony, if you're watching, hi Anthony. Yeah, so I'm very excited to share this with you guys. The files that are in the download, they're all from pexels.com. There are videos, there are photos, and I'm going to show you how to build the whole thing. Now, this particular exercise, creating several gridded layouts and then animating between them, is something that I teach in After Effects Level 2, which is taught through School of Professional Studies at New York University. So if you like this kind of thing, check out that class. It's offered again starting, I think, in March on Tuesday nights, and it is live via Zoom. And I also teach private group classes, which are currently on sale. I have private, like small group classes, and private one-on-one trainings are on sale 25% off until the end of the week. So December 6th, 2021, the sale is over. So yeah, check out KalikaFX.com so that you can see what is on sale. And if you have family members who aren't really sure what to buy for you, and you're thinking about maybe hopping on the KalikaFX train and maybe taking a class next semester, or next year, you can send them a link for my gift certificates. I have gift cards starting at $25. They go all the way to $100. And yeah, it's a great gift idea for yourself, from your spouse, from your family members. Tell them to stop buying you meaningless crap and maybe invest in your education instead. My classes are small, they're fun, they're customized. Everybody makes unique projects from week to week. It's really, they're great. I love teaching them. The afterwork crowd is absolutely my people, and I can't even wait to start teaching again in January. Okay, friends, so without further ado, let's dive in. I'm going to show you, there's a folder for assets, there's a folder for inspo, and I don't want to get flagged for copyright, so check out the inspo, but inside of assets are all of the photos and videos that you're going to need for this project. And a couple. I gave you some extras because it's always nice to have options, Here's our plan, okay? I'm going to type it out so that we can periodically refer back to it. So anyways, first we're going to create a mock-up animation, and it's going to have colored squares that indicate where each of the things are going to be, and we're going to use solids. Using solids, okay? And if you've never met solids before, or you're not really familiar with what they are, they're just these square or rectangular layers that you can create within After Effects, and they can be any color you like, and they can be any shape as long as it's a square or a rectangle. So basically any dimensions of square or rectangle, and they're very useful for creating this type of work. Then we're going to convert the solids into pre-comps. And this is like one of those cool little ninja After Effects techniques where you change the solids into pre-comps, and then you populate the pre-comps with photos or videos. You could even put animation in there, which is pretty nice. And then once we convert the solids into pre-comps, then we're going to add our holiday assets, and that should be pretty fun. We're going to add some photos. We're going to add some beautiful videos of happy children in a celebratory mood. And then we're going to make it loop. And yeah, it's a fun little mind-bending project because we actually go between, like, I think it's 3 or 4 different framings, starting and ending on the exact same one. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to go over to After Effects and I'm going to show you how to make this thing. And I have my crib sheet here that goes through what the steps are so that I don't forget. Because yeah, even someone like me who's been doing this stuff for like over 20 years, like sometimes you need notes, and that's okay. So yeah, we're going to go between 1, this is our first layout, 2, let me just make this a little bigger, this is our second layout, 3, this is our third layout, and finally we're going to go back to the first layout. Okay, so we're going to make a brand new composition. I'm going to go to the composition menu. I'm going to go to new, and in the new composition, you can name it whatever you want. I'm just going to call this grids, and my dimensions are going to be 1080 width by 1920 height. Okay, now I know if you've taken a class with me before, you're probably like, why aren't you doing this in HD? Well, this is actually HD, it's just turned. So what a lot of advertisers will do is they will take their horizontal HD videos and they'll just rotate them 90 degrees and then have the video play in a vertical format. And this, I think, looks really beautiful, especially if you're going to be doing 3 panels across, or if you're trying to fit like a skinnier space. This is also sort of the dimensions for like bus shelters and things like that. It's being used more and more widely. And it's also used for, yeah, Instagram stories. There we go. All right, so the first thing I do is in the preset section, I'm going to change that to HDTV 1080/24. Okay, but I'm not done yet. I need to make sure that I uncheck the lock aspect ratio button, because if that were turned on, it's going to keep these numbers proportional to each other. And I don't want those two numbers, the 1920 by 1080, to stay proportional to each other. I actually want them to swap. Okay, so let me show you how to do that. You uncheck that little box, and then here you're going to type into the width 1080, and in the height we're going to type in 1920. And for our duration doesn't have to be very long. I think we could get away with like 155. Sure, let's do 160 just to be on the safe side. Okay, and background color black is totally fine because nobody's ever going to see the background color. Okay, so I hit OK. So now we have a nice empty vertical HD comp. I'm going to go ahead and make some solids. Now, these layouts switch between having the squares, as you might recall, being half the screen width and being the full screen width. Okay, so like this guy right here, if we just pay attention to him really quick, yes, it's male. And then we go up to the top and now it's fully across, right? So I'm going to make my smallest box be 1080 pixels width by height. Okay, everything in this animation is modular. It's all squares. Even if it looks like it's a rectangle, you'll notice if I just drag down, they're actually squares. Okay, so in my grids, I'm going to make 2 up at the top, 1 larger one, and then 2 down at the bottom. So I make a new solid. To make a new solid, I go to Layer Menu, New Solid, and it needs to be some sort of bright color. Okay, so unlocking the aspect ratio and typing in 1080. So it doesn't matter what the solid is called. I really don't care. So I'm just going to, leave it at the default. And there we go. Okay, and that's pretty big. I want the anchor to be in the upper left-hand corner. Now, an easy way to do that is on a Mac, you'll hold the Command key. On the PC, you'll hold the Control key. And you'll just grab and, oh, hello, with the anchor point tool. You can't do it with the selection tool. Grab up the anchor point tool, and with your snapping turned on, you want to do, I usually just turn the snapping on. Now, if you have the snapping turned on, it should snap you right to the corner. Alternatively, if you don't have snapping on, if it makes you uncomfortable, you can always keep it off and just hold the Command key while you drag on a Mac, hold the Control key down on a PC. Alternatively, you can use the reposition anchor point script and just do corner and hit reposition, okay? And then that's like really precise. Okay, and I want this to be in the upper left-hand corner. Now there's two ways you can go about it. You can use the align window. Make sure align is set to composition and do align left, align top. Now that doesn't work sometimes. As my student Reiko has discovered the hard way, I felt really bad for her. The align window is sometimes buggy, and if that happens to you, all you got to do is go into your position and just into the position type 0 tab 0, and what happens is it puts your anchor point in the upper left hand corner of the entire composition, because according to After Effects' weird math, weird geometry, this is actually 0 0, and as you go to the right, see, as my mouse goes to the right, these numbers increase, the X numbers increase as I go to the right, and the Y numbers increase as I go down, okay? So I'm gonna make this solid, scale it down to 50%, okay? So now it's in that corner, and then I'm going to duplicate the solid, and I'm gonna put the duplicate over on the right, okay? So I duplicate it, and this second one, I'm gonna put it over on the right. Now, again, two ways to do it. I can use the align window, or if the align window doesn't work for you, you can just go into the position property, and because this is 1080 pixels wide, right into here, I'm just gonna do my, whoops, my zoomy zoom here, right into the position property, I can type in 1080 and then the slash for divided by and type in 2. Okay, so now it's 1080 divided by 2, and it has moved over to the right. Okay, and bloop. And let me just check something here really quick. Yes. All right. I was just checking on my microphone. Anyways, so this guy should be a different color. To change the color, just go up to the layer menu, go to solid settings. Come on. All right. Layer, solid settings, and in the solid settings window, just click the color chip and change the color. And it really doesn't matter what color it is. I don't care. So now it's blue. Okay, great. Then I need another copy of my solid. So I'm going to take this red solid once more. I'm going to duplicate it again. I'm going to drag it to the bottom, and I'm going to move it, scale it to 100% and move it down. So it's 100% now. And this gets a little bit more tricky in terms of placement. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit P for position, and the second position property, I'm just going to scrub it down. Okay. And once I've scrubbed it down a decent amount, then I'm going to take my zoom tool, and with the zoom tool, I'm going to zoom in a bunch of times and drag that second value there just a bit more. And it's very helpful to have this set to full resolution for things like this. And I just want to make sure that it's like kissing. Like there shouldn't be a single little gap in there. Okay, so that's better. And then this one I can change the color of as well. Layer menu, solid settings, and the quick key for that is Control-Shift-Y or Command-Shift-Y on a Mac. So I'm just going to make that light pink, new. Okay. Great. And then I want two little guys at the bottom. Okay. Remember from our original, we had these two little squares at the bottom, but that's a little deceptive, right? Because when I when I shift the composition, they're actually squares. So when I go back to grids, I'm going to take my red and my blue, I'm going to duplicate them and drag them all the way to the bottom. So drag to the bottom, selection tool, drag, and look, just one hand dragging down, then I hold the shift key after I've started dragging down and I continue moving down. Okay, so if you have any question, just holler out and I will gladly jump in and help you. Okay, just type it into the chat if you need any help at all. Okay, and okay, I'm gonna just go up a little more, and you can use your arrow keys on the keyboard to just nudge just a little, like sub-pixel at a time. I'm gonna change my zoom back to fit, and there is my whole thing. And I can change these to other colors as well. And it's kind of important too, because otherwise you end up with duplication in the next step, and we really don't want that. And I like to keep to the vibrant colors. So this is going to be like a cyan color, okay? And this guy, Command Shift Y or Control Shift Y, clicking that chip, and now I'm going to change that to green. So it's very colorful at this stage. It's absolutely not holiday. It's like kind of hideous. Okay, so the very first layout, if we look at what I did before, it shifts up, okay, into the second layout. So we started here, and then we moved up here, and then the next layout, we had this fill up the whole frame. So it actually ended up in the upper left corner. So we want something that's going to drive us into the upper left corner, and I find that it's easiest to do this kind of thing with a null object. Now we want that null object to kind of be placed right where the green guy is, okay? So here's my trick. You ready? I go Layer Menu, New Null Object. And remember, a null object is basically just a nothing layer that only you can see while you're working, but you can connect other layers to it. It can be used when you're doing expressions in After Effects, also known as JavaScript. And yeah, they're just generally very useful. It's like an invisible helper friend. And we want it to be placed right where the green guy is. So I'm going to go into the green layer. I'm going to hit P for position, and I'm going to click the word position. Now that highlights and kind of captures the position property. And then I'm going to copy that value, even though there's no keyframe there. I know that can be kind of confusing. Whatever. We're just copying the position, and we did it by clicking the word position and then going into edit and choosing copy. Then we go up here to the null object, okay? And we just do edit paste, and it's going to move the null object to live right there at the corner where the green solid is. So if I hit P for position, you'll see that the position of the null object and the position of the green solid are the same. Now I want all these guys to move together. So I'm going to parent them to the null object. But before I parent, I always collapse all of my layers, okay? Now the reason why I do that, there is a means to an end. I do it so that our parent and link column are only parenting. Because alternatively, you might connect properties to each other. That's what the link part has to do with. We just want to parent them. And remember, when a layer is a child of a parent layer, the child inherits position, scale, rotation, but does not inherit opacity, does not inherit effects. And I always use the classic example of the children in the mall with their parents. If the children are like following the parent around and they go from Macy's to Nordstrom, they're going to follow in position. If they go to the food court and seriously eat practically anything, they're going to scale up with the parent, because it's not like the parent's not going to feed the children. They're all going to eat. And then they all scale up together because they were, you know, in the food court, and then they go somewhere else, maybe they'll rotate, they all rotate together. But unfortunately, if the parent, well, I guess fortunately, if the parent dies in the mall, I know that's so sad, which is opacity, it disappears off the face of the earth, the children will still follow the ghost of the parent around the mall. So you can like reduce the opacity of the parent, and the child layers will still be visible throughout. Similarly, if the parent layer has an effect on it, like a Gaussian blur, I think of that as like an allergy. So if the parent has allergies, that doesn't mean the child necessarily has allergies. Like the children will still stay sharp. So I'm going to connect all of these layers to the null object because I want them to follow along in position and scale. Okay. So to do that, I click the first, I shift click the last, and then I grab this little pick whip, which controls the connection. And remember, child always reaches out to the parent, very important in terms of safety. The children always reach out to the parent, then the parent grabs their hand. And in the case of many parents have multiple children, and this is a single parent society. So here we go. So now this parent is going to drive everybody. Okay, so now we are finally ready to animate. So I've got all that at 20 frames. We're going to reframe the whole thing so that the big block aligns in the top. Okay, and that's not too hard because we also want the bottom two blocks to be fully visible, right? So here we go. Let me just double check here. I want it to be like that. Yeah. So the big block is all the way up at the top, and then we see two blocks and two partials. All right. So back to grids at 20 frames. I'm going to do P for position and S for scale. So hit letter P on your keyboard, hold the shift key and hit letter S. And we want position and scale to both be keyframed every single time. Reason being is we don't want drift. We want it to always be like position changed. Yes. All right. So we have a second set of keyframes. Did the scale change? No, we still need a second set of keyframes because we need to like mark that the we need to mark that the second keyframe is not changing, that the scale is not changing. Okay. And having pairs of keyframes that match, that are always lined up, ensures that your animation doesn't drift. So I have these two at 20 frames, and then at 30 frames, I'm going to move everything up. So I'm going to take my null object and I'm just going to drag upward. Keep dragging until we have the pink all the way up at the top, and we see a little bit of gap at the bottom. Okay. Now if I zoom in here to the very top of the comp and I just like drag this second number on null 3, or yours will probably be null 1, a little bit, I can see that this should probably be at 1080. Now mine was done pretty precisely. If yours was done even a little bit imprecisely, don't worry about it. Just make sure that like you're clear, like you don't see the like even a strip of the stuff above. And again, I'm just doing that by zooming in and like adjusting with my arrow keys. Okay, so now we have this gap down at the bottom. Like, what are we gonna do with this gap? So we gotta put some more stuff down there. So why not just take the blue and the green and duplicate them? Okay. Now, if you're getting kind of confused at this point because you used a bunch of random colors, you can always just like click on the colors and do similar colors to what I did. So remember, I had red and then blue, and then I had pink in the middle, cyan and green. And then when we went over here, I ended up with pink at the top, cyan and green at the bottom. Okay. So then these guys, I'm going to just zoom in here, and I'm going to move this guy down all the way, and I'm going to zoom in. There we go, and shift arrow up a couple times, and notice I'm at like 400%. I know that's a little extreme, and it's always better to have like a little overlap than to have a gap. Overlap preferable to gap. Okay. It's the OG, overlap over gap. Anyway, so I'm going to change my zoom back to fit, and I need to change these colors too. So this guy, I'm just going to Command Shift Y or Control Shift Y on a PC, change that color to something else. And then the other guy, I'm also going to change to something else, Command Shift Y or Control Shift Y. So how are we doing so far? Is everything kind of making sense? Do you have any questions? Now's a really good time to ask. Okay. All right. So I have my null move upward, right? That was all well and good, but I also need to have an identical scale keyframe right here. So I can either copy paste this scale keyframe, or see right here, there's this little like dip area. I can just click into the dip. Come on. Right there. I can click into the dip and just activate that. And that creates a new keyframe at the current time and value. Okay? All right. So I've made that. Next, I want to reframe this whole thing so that the green block is up at the top and scaled. So to do that, I'm going to go to 90 frames. And at 90 frames, okay, that was super weird. Did you see that? Like Photoshop just randomly started. I don't know why. Why are you being goofy, Photoshop? Photoshop's not being my friend right now. Sorry. Okay, close. Okay. So right here, at 90 frames, I want to start it right there. So I click the dips right there, and then I advance by 10 frames. So I'm going to go to 100 frames. I like to use round numbers. It makes it easier. And this guy is now going to end up in the upper corner. And in case if you've been good at math, you would know that this would be 0, tab 0. Now, alternatively, once again, if we wanted to, we could use that align window. But again, the align window sometimes screws it up. Okay, so at this point, we want our null object, which is driving everything, to actually be at 200%. So don't worry about it. It's okay. Like, I know I always harp on like, don't scale bigger than 150%. But these guys were scaled down, remember, right? I made them at 1080 by 1080, and then I scaled their values for scale down to 50%. And 200% of 50% is actually 100%. I know, pretty wild. So we're going to take our null object at 100 frames. We're going to change its scale value to 200%. Okay, and that looks pretty good. All right. But if I look at my previous animation, and the timing on the previous animation was off, that's why the numbers are different. Sorry, friends. See how this is like revealing this guy? It's not scaling, it's revealing. So we got to fix this a little bit. So what I'm going to do, it's going to blow your mind. You ready for this? I'm going to take this layer and turn off its parent. It is emancipated. Look at this. So now the blue stays put, but the green and friends grow bigger. So it reveals the contents of the blue. Okay, and the blue is just going to stay put at 100% width and height, whatever. It's a little, I think it's a little short. Yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be a little bit short because our height is not 2 times 1080. Our height is 1920. Okay, so it is going to be disproportional between the top and the bottom. Okay, so to recap, we created all of the solid blocks. Then we parented all of them to this null object, which was lined up with the green block. We set keyframes for position and scale right where it was, and then we advanced 10 frames and just moved everything up. We created 2 new blocks right here, and then parented those as well to the null. We then clicked the little dips to get the position and scale. We advanced 10 more frames, and then we moved the null into the corner and scaled it to 200%. Then we realized, hey, actually we wanted the blue to be a reveal rather than a scale. So at this point in time was when I unparented. If I had done the unparenting earlier, the blue would have ended up too small. Let me show you. So right here, if I had unparented at this point in time, look what happens to the blue. It stays little. We didn't want that. We wanted the blue to occupy the whole space underneath the green. So I made sure that the blue guy grew all the way up. And if I hit S for scale, watch what happens to the scale here. and I unparent, and it changes back to 100%. Okay, so if you have any questions, please let me know. Now is a great time to just type that into the chat. Okay, how we doing? Everything making sense? Okay, cool. So I'm going to increment and save. It's one of my favorites. It just adds a number to the end of it. It's great. Okay, and then we need to do another scale up in order to get back to the original layout. So if I go here, the last scale up happens at frame 290, which I sped it up 2x, so it's 145. So I'm going to click here on the time and do 145. And some of you might be like, oh, Kalika, why the math? I feel so dumb that math is like really hard for me. Like, I grew up in a family of scientists. When we were bored, we would do long division on the back of junk mail envelopes in the car. Like, we were all math nerds. It's not your fault. Like, if you were surrounded by a bunch of scientists who forced math down your throat every day, maybe math would be really easy for you. But I just sort of accidentally ended up becoming like a motion designer, and math came super handy. But you can get by just doing it visually. So if that helps you, you know, fine. It's all right. Don't worry about it. Or you can use a calculator. Calculators are great. I love my calculator. Anyway. So now we want all of this to end up looking like, oh, look at those cute kids. We want it all to go from here back to our original layout, which looked like this. How the hey did we do that? Well, I'm glad you asked. What we did was we did a little bit of cheating. I know I shouldn't encourage you guys to cheat, but that's what I did. Oh, now I remember why I made that all red. I made it all red on purpose. Yeah, because it gets small like that. All right, hold on, friends. I made a mistake. This guy is just like that, but it's in the corner. So yeah, I gotta fix this. Okay. So, you guys are probably like, what are you talking about? Okay, so right here, see this like blue, not the blue guy, the green guy. The green guy cannot just be this size. I'm sorry, friends. It's not going to work out. Sounds like I'm breaking up with you. No, I'm not breaking up with you. I just mean that the green guy can't just be square. He needs to be double square. He needs to be wider. So at the very beginning of this whole shenanigan, I'm going to make this wider. Not by scaling, but by changing the size of the solid. So I'm going to go up to the layer menu, go to solid settings, and I'm going to change the width to 1080 times 2. So put like a little asterisk and do 2 afterwards. And this way it'll like multiply it by 2. Okay. And then when you go to the next field, see how it like automatically does the math for you. Like I told you, you don't need to know math. After Effects will do it for you. It's great. Okay. So let me just whoop. Okay. Make it smaller. So the green solid needs to be like that. And now it's twice as wide. Okay. So this is going to help us later in life. All right, so then we go to here. Okay, and then at the very end here, when we go from like 145 to the very end, it's going to like kind of disappear, but it's going to disappear and scale. So how do we do that? So right here, I'm going to cheat on my previous version. So this guy ends up getting driven by a new null. And so our original null ended up in the upper corner. Okay, and once something gets into the upper corner, then it gets kind of hairy because then you're animating it into the negative areas of position and scale. So instead of doing the negative areas there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to parent it to a new null object, and the new null object is going to be right here in this corner. Okay, so I'm going to take that null object. I'm going to create a null object rather, and I'm going to place it right there, and then I'm going to animate it getting smaller, like down to 50% and into that corner. Okay, so right here, here's my grids. I'm going to take my this guy right here, right, and it's going to come up and smaller. So let's make another new null object. Okay, And I'm going to put it right under the first, well, right over the first one. So this is a grandparent layer, okay? I'm not going to parent anything to it just yet. Let's just collapse all the things. I want this blue here, position, to be copied to the new null. Okay, so copy and then paste. And then I'm going to, okay, I should probably have it start at the beginning. I'm going to have it, the null layer 3 parented to that guy. Okay, so null layer 3 is, null 3 is going to be parented to this one. Okay, so this is my parent and this is my grandparent. All right. So now this dude, position and scale, takes over, all right? And because all these fellas are parented to it, I'm gonna actually parent the dark blue solid to it as well. It's just, you know, it's like this is the child, and then these are grandchildren, right? So this guy and this guy are children. These guys are all grandchildren. All right, anyways, so this one I'm gonna now position and scale, and then at the very end I'm gonna move it all the way up, so it's gonna be at 0, 0, or align left and top, and then I'm going to scale it down to 50%. Okay, all right, so now we're back to here. Okay, and let me just check this. Yeah, and it goes back to the same thing. So when I go back to my grids right here, all the way beginning, right? This is where we need to end up. So I'm going to take all these guys, right? And all these guys are going to make a recurrence later in the animation. So I'm going to take all these guys and I'm going to duplicate them. Okay, and they're going to be right there, just hanging out. Oops. I got to unparent them from everyone. Okay, so now they're unparented from everyone. And then at the very end, and this is a little bit of a mind bender, so bear with me. At the very end, I'm going to say, guys, this is your parent. And I'm going to parent them to null number 4. So I'm going to do a little color coding here. So these guys are all yellow because they are my recurrence. And I'm going to rewind until they're no longer on the scene. Okay? Because the red and the blue end up back like that. Okay? And let's take our, just drop it below the null. Let's hit letter U here. And let's see if the, yeah, so the red guy, can just start like right there. So I'm going to just take all my yellow layers and I'm going to have them start at 145. So if I place my playhead like right at 145 frames and I hit the left square bracket, okay? I know I frequently talk about the left square bracket. It's my like best friend key. And the left square bracket, it looks like this. This is me with like poor fine motor skills. But yeah, it looks kind of like that, okay? And it's right next to letter P on your keyboard. It's like my best friend key, all right? So we're gonna take all these guys and start them right there, all right? And I think that's okay. I think we will be fine there. Yeah, so they're all gonna start right there. So we can do the left square bracket. I think that's, do I want it? We'll fix it in a second. Okay, so after all that, we're not actually going to use the left square bracket. Sorry. So what we're going to do instead, watch, just hang out with me for a second here. We're going to go and locate all of our solids, okay? So I'm going to take all of these guys and I'm going to figure out where their parents are. Okay, so let's just turn off these for a moment. And with my selection tool, I'm going to select this guy. And if I right click and I go to reveal layer source in project, there it is. And I can do right click, replace with pre-comp. Okay, so now that is a pre-composition. It is not a solid anymore. Don't believe me? We double click. Hey, look, there's our solid. It's inside in there. Yay. All right, so if I go back to here, that is now a pre-comp. I want this guy to also be a pre-comp. So I'm just going to right click, reveal layer source in project, right click, replace with pre-comp. And that's used twice. This guy too, right click, reveal layer source in project, replace with pre-comp. This guy too, reveal layer source in project. And I just have to do this because I have another comp in here and I don't want to cause problems basically. So reveal layer source in project, right click, replace with pre-comp, and it just straight up replaces it, which is really nice. Okay, and then once these guys all grow up, then these two show up on the scene, and these two I'm also going to replace with pre-comp. Reveal layer source in project, right click, replace, okay, and then this guy is actually gonna be one of these other friends, okay? So that blue guy is eventually going to end up being the red. We'll figure that out in a second. Okay, so right here, so I turned on the visibility of all those dudes because everybody pretty much has been replaced. Let me just replace this one too. Replace with pre-comp. Beautiful. Okay, so now everything's been replaced with a pre-comp. At the point where everything starts to shift for a final time, I'm just going to take all these guys and not just the bracket, but also the option key. Okay, so I'm going to do option and this bracket key. Okay, and that's going to shorten everything to start at that frame. All right, so now everything gets shortened to here. And it's a jump, but it won't be for long. So all those guys start right there. The only thing that really appears to jump is the red, because everything else is just sort of traveling along with the red, right? So if I just do like a little cross dissolve, T for opacity, start this red at 0 and then advance forward and just change that to 100. Oh, wait. Yeah, change it to 100. Now we're back where we started. You see? This is the same. And if I hit the end key on my keyboard, that is the same. All right, so they're like in the same spot. Okay, so that is pretty much our loop. To make it a perfect loop, I would just drag over by one click, and then when we actually finish up the movement, we're going to end up on like one frame before the very final frame, like one frame, like it's going to be moving and then it hits on the loop. Okay, all right, so how are we doing so far? Any questions? Type those into the chat and I'm happy to answer. We're going to replace some stuff as a next step. So if we look at our comp here, see how we have gifts and then holiday, children, white, red. So it goes red, white, white, red. Back to grids. I'm going to start with this one, and we have our gifts in here, right? So I'm going to go into my assets, and the way I imported the assets is pretty badass. You ready for this? I do Control I or Command I if you're on a Mac, and you go over to those assets that you imported, like, because, you know, you imported the assets, and then you just click the folder that's called assets. I know, just click that and then hit import folder, and it imports everything inside. It's so great. And then inside in there, you'll have your photos and your videos. So all these guys would be in videos, and all these guys would be in photos. I just organized kind of after the fact. Photos. Fabulous. Okay, so the gifts are this. So if I drag it in here, okay, and I want to resize it vertically, so I go Layer Menu, Transform, Fit to Comp Height. Good. When I go back to grids, hey look, it's been replaced. Then over on the right, we have a white square that says holiday through it. So I'm just going to double click on that. I'm going to take my blue solid and change it to white. Click, click, click. Okay, now that's white. And all I did, friends, was I just took my type tool and I chose like a nice red color. And I used a pretty simple font. I didn't use anything especially fancy. So if you look at this, I think it was just Sago. So this guy is, it was Sophia Pro Black, which I think is a Google font. Sophia Pro Black. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to copy all of these words over, and I'm just going to move them into my grids blue comp, which it's not actually blue anymore. Okay, and you can actually rename your comps. Remember, Command K for composition, and then just type into here holiday, and I would just put PC at the very beginning of it. Okay, PC-holiday. Fabulous. This is ready. And then in the middle we have a photo, and the photo, sorry, a video. What am I saying? And the video is the video of all the children. So I'm going to double click on that solid. I'm going to go into my videos, and I think it was just this. So I just drag it right on top and layer, transform, fit to comp height. Now you're always going to be doing either fit to comp height or fit to comp width. There's a third option which is terrible, and that is fit to comp, and that distorts your image any way it can in order to fit, and that is never a good idea. Don't do that to people. People don't like being squished. And we just want to scale that up a little bit so that they're a little closer to us. I think that looks nice. And then when I go back to grids, you'll see that it updates. Now it's a good idea to also turn off the solid that's underneath if it is contrasting in an unsightly way to the rest of what you're working on. So I'm going to reduce my resolution here just to make it a little bit cleaner. This square here was just white at first, so we're just going to respect that and change the solid settings to white. Alternatively, if you already have a white solid and it bothers you to have multiple white solids, which some people, they get really annoyed, just select the blue, select the white, and alt drag, and it'll just swap one for the other. When I go back to grids, now that one's white, and I'm going to take this one and I'm going to change it to red. I like this red a lot from Holiday. I'm going to show you how to copy that over. So if I go into PC Holiday and I click on my text and I click on this color chip, see this hex code right here, this like little 6-digit code? I'm going to copy that 6-digit code. And when I go back to where were we? When I go back to grids, yeah, this little guy here, double click, this is going to be actually that same red color. So I'm going to go to Layer Menu, Solid Settings, and in the solid, I'm going to click that color chip and just paste the code right in there. Like, why not? Keep it consistent. And this is going to now be a red solid, but up at the top, I want to have my URL because, you know, shameless self-promotion. It's good to have. And instead of italic for this, I'm going to do maybe regular. And I also liked the font Sophia. I think Sophia is a nice font. Sophia Pro. Sophia Pro, not ultralight, but regular or medium should do. And then right in here, I'm just going to type in KalikaFX.com. And left paragraph and align left top, and then just nudge it, you know, just take my selection tool and move it. I like Sophia. It's like a slightly more sophisticated century school book. It's cute. Anyway, it's friendly. So back to grids. Look at that. So it's not terrible. It's maybe a little bit big, but I can always adjust that later. And now when we switch, you might have noticed that we had a different kid up there in the original animation, and that's a really easy fix. You ready for this? It's gonna blow your mind. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna double click on it, and here's the kids, right? I go up here and I'm gonna choose this like really beautiful video of this happy little girl. There, she's so cute. So I'm just gonna put her right on top, and make sure you hit that like left square bracket key so that you can have that video start right there. Where are you? It's pale green, I think. No, it wasn't. I don't remember. It was pink. There we go. So there's that little girl, and I don't want her to just jump into the frame. I think that's also maybe a little bit too big. So I'm just gonna reduce her scale a bit and maybe move her. I love Pexels because it gives me like pretty high resolution video. And I'm just gonna do a little opacity. So start the opacity at 0 and then advance 20 frames to like frame 40, and then just change that to 100%. So now she fades into the scene, and check out my like little mini flow chart here. I'm just gonna scoot back to grids. Okay, and when we go forward, there we have it. Okay, so that's pretty good. Oh, it was a 10 frame? Yeah, it was a 10 frame. My apologies. We'll just go back into her and we'll just move her keyframe. All better. So back to grids. Yeah, that was that little fast forward button. Love that. Anyways, now I want to do something in this window. In this window, I want there to be a star that like just draws on and then draws off, and then the word joy shows up, and it's going to be really cute. So I'm just going to double click that guy, and I'm going to take my star tool, and with nothing selected, clicking that color chip, I can just paste in there my red color. I know, it's the same one. And then if I click drag, I can get a star. If I hold the shift key down, it keeps it vertical, which is really nice. Okay, and I want it to be fairly big. And then I can just go in here, and if I just hit letter U 2 times really fast, check this out. U. It shows me everything that's been changed from the defaults. And if I change the transform for Polystar 1 to 0, 0, it actually centers it, which is really nice. Okay. And then you can reset your transform, and that also keeps it centered. And then I can just like move it down a little bit. And that is like not the right color. Like screwed up my color. Thanks very little. Click the stroke, paste. Okay. All right. Now I want this to draw on and then draw off. And I want it to kind of start like right here. So if I go to the add flyout and I choose trim paths, then I can do a draw on, draw off, which is really nice. So to do the draw on, I'm actually going to start put the end value at 0 in the beginning and turn on the stopwatch. And then like 10 frames later, I'm going to set it to 100. And then like 10 frames later, I'm going to turn on the stopwatch next to start, and 10 frames later. And I'm just doing this with command right arrow, or I think it's control shift right arrow. Yeah, control shift right arrow on a PC. And then the start, I'm going to set that to 100%. And what you end up with is this. Oh, come on, don't fail me now. Let me just move this forward. Okay. Yeah, not too bad. Okay. All right. So that's nice. And then I'm going to get my joy happening. And for joy, I'm going to have the same color again. And under fonts, the one that I used, it was called like Romeo or something. Romeo Fans. This is like a free font that you can download from places. And here's my type tool, and I'm just going to write the word joy. And I make it kind of big, and I center it, okay? So whenever I need to make text big, whenever it's humanly possible, I always like to adjust the size of the font rather than changing the scale, because otherwise the scale ends up being like some funky value, and that doesn't make me happy. So let's just drop this down. I'm going to have the paragraph be centered. I'm going to have the alignment be centered. And yeah, let's just move its anchor point so it's kind of more logical. And if I have that snapping turned on, I can always turn it off. And mine bothers me. I just anchor center. There we go. That was with my trusty reposition anchor point tool. I love that. It's an After Effects script that's available for free. You can get it from aescripts.com. It's pay what you wish. So at this point in time, I want joy to have come onto the scene. So maybe at like, if I take my selection tool and I just move this so it starts a little earlier. Now, if you're working on this and you're like, Kalika, you have these columns that I don't, like what is going on? You can always right click up here where it says like layer name or source name, and then go to columns and choose in, and that will help you like figure out where a layer starts. The out column is totally useless. Don't use that. But the in column, very useful. Okay, so I want this to end up at this size. So I'm going to turn on the scale, and then I hit letter I for in point. And at the in, I'm going to change the scale to like 20. You know, it's kind of nice to have it start a little bit on screen. And then once it gets to this point, I'm going to have it split like into 3 different joys. So I'm going to take joy and I'm going to duplicate it 2 times, Command D, or Control D if you're on a PC. Hit letter U and turn off the scale because we don't need it. And I'm going to hit that trusty left square bracket because that is my best friend key. And then when I get back to, is this what I was working in? No. Grids, this one. I'm going to rename this PC Joy. Composition settings, PC-Joy. I know I'm going a little bit over. I'm sorry. I hope you don't mind. So then right here, this guy, I'm going to do just position, okay? And position is going to be right here in the center to start off with. And then like 10 frames later, I'm just going to move it off. So one of these is going to go over here. And the other one, which is this guy, is just going to end up over here. Looks pretty. I like it. Oh, hi, Jose. Welcome from Brazil. Okay. So now I'm going to take these 2 keyframes and I'm going to set the easy ease on those. So it's going to be like kind of a whoosh. And I'm also going to give that a little fade. Okay. So with my current time set to that last keyframe, I'm going to hit hold shift and type T, and that brings up my opacity property too. Turn on the opacity stopwatch, and then I can hit letter I, and that will take me to the end point of the layer where I can set everything to 0. Okay, because you don't want it to like suddenly get bold and then move. That looks weird. So I'm going to have it like kind of fade as it moves. And you don't have to have your fade and your position be concurrent. You could just take your fade keyframes and move them a little earlier. So like it splits and fades up at the same time and then settles into its final location. Good. Okay, so back to grids. So now all this mishmash has happened right here. And why what happened with our, oh yeah, our Joy Star, and then it did that. That's good. And I also wanted like a little bit of propaganda at the bottom. I mean, a little slogan at the bottom there. So I'm just going to go into this and go into my original animation. And I don't remember what I put in there. I think I said something like wishing you a wonderful holiday season. Yeah, fine. So I'm just going to double click on that. And here's my text tool. I'm just going to select all that. And that was done in what font? The computer's like super laggy. Oh, it was done in Sego. Sego is a nice like corporate looking font. So I'm just going to copy that text and I'm going to go back into my grids and see how this looks kind of big. I think it looks kind of big. We'll fix it. So I'm going to go over to this comp and you can just double click on it right there in the comp viewer. When you double click, there you go. And then click with the type tool and paste. Okay, and that's a little tall, like a little low. So I'm just gonna shift arrow it up so that the Y doesn't get cut off. And the leading or the space between lines is a little bit tricky with this one because you have descending G and Y and an ascending D and F and L here. And then here you have no descenders, but here you have all up ascenders. So you kind of have to, you know, mess with it a little bit because otherwise it looks weird. So don't use the default leading if you're going to do something like this. KalikaFX.com could definitely be smaller. I'm just going to scale it down a bunch. And make it cute, and then just move it up a bit. Nice. I'm gonna go over here, back to grids, and that should look nice right there. Oh, it's so big. That needs to be smaller. We will make you smaller, friend. Let's make that like a bit smaller. So here's something that I do pretty frequently when I'm trying to get something from a pre-comp to fit into a main composition. It's one of my ninja tricks. So here's my grids composition. I go up here at the very top where I have my tab name and I actually lock the tab name. And when I lock it, it's kind of cool because, okay, my zoomy zoom is not working. When I lock it, it keeps that visible. And then I can go over here and double click and I can move that over just by grabbing the little tab, right? Grab the tab, drag it over to the right. And now I can see both at the same time. And then I can take this text and I can be like, you know what? Let's reposition anchor point that lower left reposition. And then I'm going to scale that down. S for scale and just drop the scale value. And I'm going to drop the scale value until we see it properly in here. And you see how like you get immediate feedback. You don't have to keep going back and forth between composition tabs. You can just see it all happening right there in your main comp. And so I can do the same thing here with KalikaFX. Once again, I'm going to reposition the anchor point to the upper left corner so that way I don't have to reposition the location of the text because I kind of like the location of it so far. I think it's okay, but I just want it to be slightly bigger. Yeah, I think that looks nice-ish. Okay. So those two guys are done. And if I look at my finished version, you can see that down here there was just a red shape. And then over on the right, we had our other picture. So let's go back to grids and this one in the corner. Really, friend? You are magenta. Why am I not able to select you? So if you run into an issue where it's just like not letting you select a thing, you can always like right click and go to select and then I can be like, yeah, magenta, hello, it's your cue. And then I can double click on that and then that didn't work. It chose the wrong one right here. Right click, select magenta, and then you can hit the / key and it should open the right one, and it's totally misbehaving because it's getting confused because I have too many windows open. So I'm just going to close up a bunch of these comps so that it does not get confused anymore. And that, and that, and that, and that. And here's grids, and right click, and select, and magenta solid 2. And you can always hit letter X to scroll it up, and then I can double click on it. And now we're in magenta solid 2. Oh my gosh, why was that so complicated? Come on, After Effects, be my friend. So I just did solid settings from the layer menu. I'm gonna change the color to my trusty red that I know and love. Oh snap, it's not in my clipboard anymore. So on a PC, did you know you can just do Windows V and it'll show you like all kind of things, and it's totally not showing me my color? How sad. All right, so I can do this. I can take my eyedropper and come over here to the text box, and now I have the same color, and I can copy that back into my clipboard, hit OK again, and now I have a red solid right there. Fabulous. Okay, so now that's red. The blue guy in the way back, the blue guy needs to be a photo. So I'm going to replace him with, there's this like really nice photo right here. It's got like a bunch of holiday themes. So I just drag that in and layer, transform, fit to comp, height maybe? No. How about fit to comp width? If one doesn't work, just use the other one. Try again. There we go. That should look pretty. And then when I go back to grids, it updated right there. And if I look through the animation, now it's going to reveal that photo in a very nice way. Like that just, I think that looks so good. Okay. So now that reveals, and then when we come back to here, check this out, friends. So from here to here, remember we wanted it to go back to our children at the end. We didn't want just that one girl. So we have to actually fake this out a little bit. So I can take this picture that's going to fade back on, which is this one, right? Because that's the one that has the kitties in it, isn't it? No, it's not. It's this one. So just click on it and you'll get there. And I'm going to hit letter I to get to the end point of it. And I'm going to double click. Okay. And that's the point at which I want those children to come back. So I'm going to take these kids and I'm going to duplicate them and drag them up top and hit the left square bracket. And there's my kitties again. Okay. And then when I go back to my grids, okay, the problem is that actually here is where that first frame of video ends up showing up. So here's what we're going to do. You ready for this? We're going to double click here. Okay. This guy is going to get a marker. So I go to markers, add marker. Okay. I'm going to double click on it and it's going to tell me that this layer with the kitties on it, we are at frame 18. Okay. And that means that this video here in this comp, and if that ever happens to you where you're like, oh, I can't find the comp that's associated with the timeline, somehow it got closed, there's this trusty little button here, which when I showed it to one of my students, she was like, oh my gosh, After Effects is so full of surprises. She was one of my adult students. I'll never forget it. I was like, you're right. It is. It's so full of surprises and secrets and all kinds of things. So this little multi-shape icon will bring back your composition. So watch, if this guy was closed and I was just looking here, I could just click that little thing and it shows up my composition here. Okay. So this composition, actually, I need the video to start at 18 frames. And so here's my trick. You ready? I double click the video. I advance to 18 frames in the layer window. And look at this. See these like little in and out icons? If you click the in, okay, look what happens in my timeline down here. Just watch my timeline while I click on the in. Boop. So what it does is it not only shaved off the first 18 frames, it also made my layer begin at 18 frames. Don't believe me? You see this little gray area earlier? Look at that. It's 18 frames. Oh my gosh. That's nuts. That's so smart. I love this. I wish Premiere had something like this. It probably does. I just haven't met it yet. So anyways, we fixed that timing issue. And again, the reason we had the timing issue was that in the process of doing the camera move into that initial layout, we took 18 frames to get there. And so that meant that our loop had to start 18 frames into that footage. Okay. So when we look at the grids now, we here are at, if I double click this composition, okay, it should be 17 frames. If I double click this, sure enough, we're at 17 frames, and then the next frame, which is the start of the loop, is going to be at 18. Yay! Okay. So, yeah, that's like kind of pretty much it. And of course, I would go in and I'd mess with my keyframes and stuff. Like the easiest way to mess with your keyframes, friends, is to just select all of your last keyframes for every move and then just right click, keyframe assist, easy ease. Okay. And then once it's easy eased, then you would go into keyframe velocity and just set that incoming to like, I don't know, like 70. That works. And then just to avoid any like sort of like weird shifty stuff, I like to also set those to hold keyframes. Now you might have noticed that if you have two identical keyframes, sometimes you'll still see like a little movement. So this like just nips that. It gets rid of that additional movement. Yeah, and that's like pretty much it. Oh, what's going on here? Why are you blue? I'm so blue. Why are you blue? Oh, see my picture? It started late. And the reason my picture started late is because I have this thing in my preferences that I forgot to reset. Anyway, so if you go into preferences general when you're doing this type of thing, it's a good idea to make sure that your preferences are set so that it creates new layers at comp start time. Now, usually I animate like an editor. In this situation, you don't. So create layers at comp start time, and I would just change this in to 0, and voila, and back to grids, and yeah, the whole thing is like basically done. The one last piece that I would do is to have the wishing you a wonderful holiday season animate on once this moves into place. Let me just get that in there. So here's the red solid comp, double click, here's my text. I'm going to do my trusty left square bracket, my best friend key. And then in my effects and presets, I really like the bullet train text animation. And I just make sure my playhead is right there at 30 frames and hit letter U. Oh, come on. Right here, hit letter U in the timeline. And you can see the text kind of come on like this. I mean, it's not anything fancy, but it looks pretty cool. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of it. Finally, I'm going to export this guy, okay? And this would be like pretty much the settings that I would use if I were doing any kind of like final animation. I would export as an MOV file, and then I would convert that into an MP4. So I'll just show you the MOV section. So let me just save this. Let's just do my good old increment and save. And then I'm going to do File menu, Export, Add to Render Queue, starting the render settings at best settings. Yours might say current settings. Just make sure it's set to best. Best is best. And then where it says output module, I like to change that one to lossless. And then after that, I click the blue word that says lossless. And up at the top, format should be QuickTime. And even on a PC, you can do this, friends. Click on Format Options and change your video codec to Apple ProRes 422HQ or 422. Either or is totally fine, okay? And then I hit OK, OK. And then down here where it says Output 2, I click on that and I tell it to save it into the same folder as like all the other stuff that I'm working on, you know? Like, because you just want to keep all the things together. So, where are you? Hold on. Recent. There. So Candid Add, renders I have a folder of, grids, save, and then I hit render. And finally, once it's done rendering, then I also like to do a collect files. And this is what I do whenever I'm transferring photos or like whenever I'm transferring an After Effects project to someone else. And that can be found in the file menu under dependencies. There's a thing that says collect files. Just collect all the files used for the, like I would reduce the project first and then collect the files. Anyways, I'm not going to make you sit through that. I'll do it after my bye-bye, but thank you so much for joining me. This has been a blast. It was really fun to make this with you. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to add them to the comments. If you have suggestions for future tutorials, add those to the comments. If you want to be informed of future live streams, please sign up for my email list. I send out newsletters fairly regularly, like every week to 2 weeks, whenever I do a new live stream, whenever I'm offering new classes, stuff like that. And don't forget, there's a sale at KalikaFX.com just for this week. All of my small group classes and one-on-one trainings, which are all via Zoom, you can take them from anywhere in the world. They are 25% off for this week only, and those start in January. Okay? All right, friends. Thanks again. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you soon. I'll see you next week with a new animation or design project. All right. Have a fantastic week. Thank you. Bye. Bye, everyone. Bye, Gozia. See you, Reiko. See you later, Jose. Bye. All right, so I'm going to collect the files now. All right, here we go. File menu, dependencies, collect files. Yes, I want to save it. Of course I want to save it. And then, oh, that's like a lot of stuff. Okay, I'm not going to collect everything then. So I'm just going to go File menu, dependencies, reduce project. And I'm going to get an error. You ready for this? It's going to be like, hey, what, you know, there's a bunch of, oh, rats. I had the wrong thing selected. Oh, ooh, I can undo. Okay, so I want to find my grid. Where are you at, grid? Grid. File, dependencies, reduce, better. Okay, and then I'm going to take all my comps, and I'm just doing command or control click on a Mac, control click on a PC, dragging those things to a folder. Going to call it comps. Going to drag that folder out of everything. Ooh, it like re-alphabetized. Drag that down, and that takes it out of the whole thing. And finally, I'm going to collect. So save, and I'm going to zip this once it's collected, and I'll throw that into our same folder so that you have everything. So let me just do file, save as, and I'm just going to call it grid finished, save, and then collect. File, dependencies, collect. That's better. It's only 72 megs now. There we go. It's just copying all the things, and it'll open the folder after I'm done, and that's it. All right. Thanks, friends. I'll see you soon. Bye.